Welcome back, everyone. My name is Marcus Henriksson. I'm a real estate analyst here at ABG Sundal Collier. Next on this track is Logistea with CEO Niklas Zuckerman. This is a company that was formerly named Odd Molly, but now it's a purely property-focused company. So I will leave it over to you, Niklas.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to the history shortly, but as said, we are today a property company with full focus on logistics, warehouse, and light industrial properties. A few numbers. We're listed on the mid cap on Nasdaq. We have a market cap of roughly 2 billion SEK. Property values per year end 2.6 billion, and if we include recently signed deals and signed LOIs, we are at 3.8 billion. Roughly 300,000 square meters of properties. We have an additional 237,000 square meters of building rights, which is of great importance to us. Net LTV of just below 56%. And the main owners are Ilja Batljan, Rutger Arnhult, Phoenix Insurance Group, Hansson Holding, and Dragfast. We presented the other week a new strategy and new financial and operational goals. To summarize the strategy is that we'll create value by active management, develop properties on own land, and be very active on the acquisition market. On the acquisition market, we're basically doing one deal every second week. And at the moment, we're doing mainly slightly smaller deals, so in the range of 50 to 200 million SEK. And just because there we see that we can create more value, basically. It's less competition and we can do better deals, basically. To highlight a few financial and operational objectives, we should have a growth in the NAV per share by 12% every year. The LTV should not exceed 60%. We should create a property portfolio at a value of 15 billion SEK by the end of 2024. We should, on an annual basis, create or produce new properties at own land in the range of 25,000 square meters. And 50% of the loan portfolio should be green financing by the end of 2026. Short on the history of Logistea, as said, it used to be a fashion company. In 2019, the first property was bought, and since 2020, it's been full speed ahead to be a property company instead. New management was hired in 2021. We changed the name in 2021 to Logistea from Odd Molly, and we sold and distributed the fashion business to the current shareholders. Apart from myself being the CEO, we got Anders Nordvall and Tobias Löfstedt with full focus on transactions. Philip being responsible for the financials, Marlene Broman, who's heading up the property management team, and joining later this month, we got Maria Kruse, who will be responsible for sustainability and IR. We're also, I would say, very proud of the board of directors and the active management and the active owners, the main owners, and we feel that that group together with us is a good force to drive the business forward. We also presented the other week new sustainability targets. Worth to highlight is that all new productions will be according to BREEAM, very good or excellent. We got a green finance framework, and we issued a green bond last year of 500 million SEK. And we're also very proud sponsors of Grund & Boys in Gothenburg. So why invest in Logistea? We've summarized six reasons why, and I'll come back to those in the coming slides. The first one, obviously, is that there's really strong market fundamentals when it comes to logistics, warehouse, and light industrial. Increased demand from the tenants, high turnover when it comes to the transaction market, and that's driven both by domestic and international players. The percentage of e-commerce versus normal trade, so to say, is increasing by the day. And we also see a tendency, and that's really important, we see a tendency that a lot of companies they're looking to move the production closer to their home market. And there we see that we can find opportunities to grow with really good, stable tenants. The current property portfolio, it's a good mix of logistics, warehouse, and light industrial. We are mainly today focused on southern part of Sweden, even though we got a few properties coming in northern parts. But today we are very large in Borås, for instance, and the Jönköping area. We will look into different parts of Sweden. As long as there are good micro locations and strong tenants, we'll consider those locations as well. And as we said the other week, in the long run, we might consider some of the other Nordic countries if the right deal pops up. As said, we favor long leases. We didn't recently signed LOIs. The WALT has increased to 8.5 years, which is, I would say, extremely long. We've got 80% of the leases on triple net, meaning that the tenant bear all the operational costs. And the current occupancy rate is 97%, which is high. Looking at the tenants, it's a good mix of e-commerce tenants and logistic tenants. And as you can see, most or top 7 out of the 10 largest tenants, their lease expire in 2027 or later. Fourth one is an attractive yield gap, and basically you could say we're buying properties at the range of, say, 6 to 7.5%. They're currently valued in our books at 6%. Our cost of cap or our cost of debt is at 3.1%. And that's a mix of roughly 1 billion SEK worth of bank loans and 500 million SEK of bond loans. And the blended cost there is 3.1, but that still leaves us with a great yield gap of almost 3%. As I said, we got great ambitions to grow the company to 15 billion SEK within 2.5 years, and we believe that once we get closer to that goal, the cost of debt will go down, and obviously the yield gap will increase even further. The rental income is basically increasing by the day. We are as of today at 165 million SEK for the investment properties, as we call it. If we're adding the project properties, we're at 198 million. So almost 200 million SEK in rental income. Current NOI, including those properties, is in line with 165 here. So obviously we're growing fast. We're doing good deals, and with that follows increased rental income and NOI, of course. Fifthly, then, and this is one of the things that will drive the business. We have a very good and large land bank, so we'll produce new properties on own land. And why are we doing that? Basically, it's a good deal. Basically, we'll come back to a few examples, but the yield on cost for these type of investments are 7 to maybe 8.5%. We got large land banks, especially in the Jönköping area and the Gothenburg, Borås area, and we'll look to buy more land, basically, because we believe that it's a good investment for us, but we also believe that we need land in order to grow with our existing tenants. And as said, the goal is to reach 15 billion SEK by new acquisitions and own developments by 2024. A few examples of existing properties and developments. The first one, end of last year or in October of last year, we bought a portfolio of 7 properties, 100,000 square meters, 30 tenants, 6-year remaining lease term, and here we paid an initial yield of 7.9%. Second one is in Viared, Borås, which is the best logistic part of Borås. Slightly shorter leases, 2.5 years remaining, and here we paid 6.7% yield. Third one we did in the other week in February. We paid 6% for a triple net lease, 15-year lease with the tenant Arome Decor. So newly built, prime location there, and long lease, and then we're paying 6%. The 3 properties to the right are developments or extension. The first one is a property that we acquired in 2019. We're extending it by 2,500 square meters, and at the same time we're installing solar cells. The yield on cost on this one is 7%, fully let on a 10-year triple net lease to GDL. The second one is also an extension, yield on cost just above 8%. It's 70% let to e-commerce tenant Sellbes on a 12-year lease, and this is in Borås. And thirdly, new production in our large development site in Vaggeryd, south of Jönköping. We're currently constructing 13,000 square meters to 3 tenants at a yield on cost of 8%. So to summarize, why invest with us at Logistea? Obviously, extremely hot and good fundamentals in the light industrial warehouse logistics segment, increased demand from tenants that will drive, hopefully, rents in many parts of Sweden. We're presenting the other week improved financial overalls, growing company, and that's shown in the numbers. We got a new business plan that we'll implement that will create value for the investors and the shareholders in Logistea. The growth, as I said, will be driven by transactions, new development, and active management. And it's worth to mention and point out that our transactions team is probably one of the best in Sweden. So they will do good deals in all cycles. And currently, as I said, we're doing mainly smaller ones, but that might change if the market changes. And finally, very strong and active shareholders, and that's important because we are getting good deals from them, but we're also getting good financial support once we grow the business. I think there are 2 slides appendices. The main owners, this you can find in the presentation at ABG's website. And there are some income statement and balance sheet as well, and obviously all of this can be found in the reports presented on our webpage.
Perfect. I guess we move on to some Q&A. You talked a little bit about reaching the target 15 billion up until 2024, and you said acquisitions and new developments. How large part would the development side be, and is it mainly from acquisitions that's going to reach you the target?
It will be mainly from acquisitions. The target of producing 25,000 square meters a year at least, that means something in the range of, say, 300 to 400 million SEK. And we need to grow by 3.5 billion SEK a year. So it will be mainly acquisition. But it's really important, as I said, that we have land available, and if we can produce more than 25,000, that's all good and perfect. But to start with, it will be quite a lot of acquisitions.
And the LOI you have with the battery company, should that be seen as on top of this? Because there's a lot of uncertainties, I guess, surrounding zoning plan, etc.
That should be seen on top of this. So as you said, we got an LOI with the tenant. We got you could say similar LOI with the municipality of Svenljunga. Everyone is working hard to get this done, but that's on top of this. That will be a game changer for not only Logistea but for that region as such. So that's on top, and the risk maybe with the zoning plans, etc. But less of a risk when you're in a location like Svenljunga compared to, for instance, Stockholm and Gothenburg. So great support from the local authorities to get this done. So we see little risk with the zoning plan process there.
Yeah, maybe more with the time. Like it usually takes longer time to build out than everyone hoped for. But everyone is supporting.
Yeah, it's a massive project, and one should have respect for that. But as I said, everyone is working towards to get it done, and fingers crossed it will happen. It would be good for all parties. But it's a massive project, and we're still early in the process.
I agree. It's super interesting. The NAV target, you have 12% per annum over a business cycle. Could you break that down a bit? Cash flow, projects, leverage?
That would vary, I would say, year by year, depending on how much own development we do. But in general, we buy properties at yield of between, say, 6 and 7.5. As we presented, they're valued at 6% right now. So there is some NAV there, and we typically, if we have a yield on cost on a project of say 7.5 or 8%, that type of property, newly built, good tenants in good logistics locations. They are today traded at, I don't know, 3.5 to 4.25%. So obviously that creates a lot of value. So it will vary over time, depending on how much home construction we do and the versus how well we are doing on the acquisition market. So it will be a big mix of both, and obviously, as we said, that the cost of debt is now 3.1%, and everything equal. Once we grow the company with good, stable tenants, we're hoping to get that cost down. So all of those three will be important factors to drive the NAV.
Do you see it as an ambitious target? We've had several years now where NAV growth in the sector, maybe logistics in particular, have been above 20%, but worst thing can happen in the world. Currently, it's a bit messy around the world. What do you feel? Is it ambitious or reasonable target?
No, but it's obviously we set the target before the war started in Ukraine, but it's still a reasonable target. With the strong owners that we have, for us, it's not the end of the world. If the transaction market slows down, for instance, probably we can do better deals then. So I would say it's a realistic target, absolutely. The demand from the tenant within this segment is extremely strong. It was partly driven or it was speeded up because of the pandemic, but we see no slowdown, so to say. And as I mentioned, we wouldn't be surprised if we'll see an increased demand from tenants that will move their production from elsewhere to Europe. And that could be Sweden and other European countries, but we'll probably see a few or quite a lot of companies want to move back to production to Sweden. And there we want to be. We want to be part of that journey, so to say.
I agree. Interesting trends. There are several logistics companies in Sweden. What differentiates Logistea from the crowd?
Hard to comment on each and every one of them because I don't know them that well. But we believe that we have a good mix of extremely talented and experienced transaction people. So we believe that we will do the best transaction in all cycles. At the same time, we have also an extremely good team doing the own developments, and it's not easy to be fair. But we have a good team doing that, so that we make sure that we produce or that the costs are in line with what we believe they should be when we started. So that mixed together and together with a good active management, we can do so we can do everything, you could say, within the logistics segment. If there's a great demand for new production, we can do that. If the transactions market is cheap, so to say, then we can do a lot of that. So we're open to do basically anything depending on where we can do the best deals. And also we like the light industrial segment as well. Not only the pure logistic hubs, 30,000 square meters leased to one tenant. We also like those, but they are a bit too expensive for us to buy right now. So we're more producing them on our own land, and what we buy is a mix of logistics, warehouse, and light industrial. And one should remember, many of the light industrial companies, they are doing extremely well. You know, profitable companies that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years. And we're doing many transactions where we're buying the properties from them, and in many cases they get partly paid in Logistea shares, and so they are, so to say, a part of the family, and that's a type of transactions that we like a lot.
And when you do acquisitions, what's the most important for you? Is it stable tenant? Is it stable rents with low downside risk? Is it yields, location? You know, what do you know? What's your favorite acquisition if you have to pick one of those kind of
If I have to pick one, then it would probably be, you know, location is obviously always important, but we would not do a deal if the tenant is not doing well. So we will look into the tenant. If they're profitable, that's the most important, I would say. And it has to go, obviously, we want to make sure that they can pay the rent for the remaining of the lease term, but we also want to be or find those type of tenants because they will expand. And we want to be part of that when they either expand in the existing property or build a new one. And so, you know, that type of properties or that type of tenants that are doing well, we tend to start there, so to say. But all of the aspects that you mentioned are obviously important, but creditworthiness of the tenant is extremely important for us.
You talked a little bit about project management and how does the organization look like when it comes to property management? What do you outsource? What do you do in house? And same with the projects.
We do so. Starting with the projects, we do it on ourselves, or we do it. We got our own organization, so we run the project. It's not that we hire a consultant. We got that expertise in house. On the property asset management, we do everything apart from the technical management, which we buy mostly from the former seller. They got good people on the ground, and so we hire them or we. But otherwise, we're doing the commercial property asset management ourselves. So discussions with tenants, etc., add-ons, etc. We do on our own.
All right. A bit about financing. You talked a little bit before, you know, growing up to 15 billion. I agree. You should be able to get better financing than you have right now, all else equal. But looking at the interest maturity now, it's at 0.5 years. Sector is at 3 or slightly above 3. What do you think about that? And are you looking into swaps or what are the discussions with the banks?
No, sure. I agree. Both us and our bank colleagues agree. So we're looking into swaps or caps, and it wouldn't surprise either myself or you if you'll see that type of instrument in our loan portfolio within short.
Okay, all right. You are from the property market for a long time. You know the market well. What trends do you see? You mentioned that we are gonna, we had a lot of years of outsourcing coming back to Sweden potentially. What do you see in logistics, light industrial, in terms of rental levels, yields, supply, demand?
Yeah, it's been extremely hot or basically since the pandemic, together with the residential market. So in a European perspective, we're seeing yields at 2.5%, maybe even lower for the best urban logistic properties. As of today, there is massive competition when it comes to the larger lot sizes. That will continue, I'm pretty sure. On the rental side, many believe, and we have seen rental uplifts, especially in the major 3 cities of Sweden. So suburban locations to Stockholm, you've seen great rental uplift, and that has come with or what we have seen as a result of that is it's become quite expensive on the transaction market, maybe a bit too expensive for ourselves to buy in good suburban locations to Stockholm. We don't disagree that there is a rental case, but we today we see better transactions elsewhere in stable, good locations in cities like Borås or Jönköping or Växjö, or we did a transaction in Jönköping the other week where we're buying at 4.75% newly built warehouse, long lease, and we're paying with our own shares. So we tend to do those type of transactions rather than competing in suburban locations to Stockholm. But they might be right. But for us, we see better use of the money elsewhere today.
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap up. Thank you, Niklas, for presentation today. We'll soon be back with the next company in track 2, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.